The crystal glasses clinked as Marcus Sterling sat in the private lounge of the Billionaire's Club, one of New York's most exclusive venues. The room smelled of expensive cigars and aged whiskey. At 35 years old, Marcus was the youngest person there, but his $4.2 billion net worth from his tech company made him one of the wealthiest. Marriage is just a business deal these days, James Henderson said, swirling his drink. He was Marcus's biggest rival in the tech industry, and someone Marcus couldn't stand, especially for people like us. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Not everyone thinks like you, James. Some people still marry for love. The other men in the room laughed. They were all successful businessmen, all billionaires, and all part of the same exclusive circle. James leaned forward in his leather chair, a mischievous smile on his face. Really, Sterling? You think love exists between different social classes? James's eyes had that look they always got before he made a deal. What if we make this interesting? Marcus should have known better. He should have walked away, but something about James's smug face made him stay. What do you have in mind? $10 million, James said, pulling out his phone to make some calculations. I bet you can't marry someone from the working class and stay married for a full year. The room went quiet. Even the usual background noise of ice clinking in glasses stopped. Marcus felt his heart beat faster. He knew this was wrong. The idea of marrying someone just for a bet went against everything he believed in. That's ridiculous, Marcus said, but James wasn't done. Afraid you can't do it? Or maybe you're worried about what the board of directors will think when they see you with someone who isn't from our circle? James' words were carefully chosen to hit Marcus where it hurt most, his pride. Marcus thought about his own parents. His father had been a factory worker before starting his own business, and his mother had been a teacher. They had taught him that money didn't define a person's worth. But over the years, living in this world of extreme wealth, he had started to forget those lessons. If I take this bet, Marcus said slowly, there need to be rules. James's face lit up. Of course. Rule 1, the person must be genuinely working class. No hidden trust funds or secret inheritances. Rule 2, you have to stay married for a full year. Rule 3, no telling them about the bet. Marcus felt sick to his stomach, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. And how do we prove their background? My team will do a complete background check once you find someone, James said confidently. Oh, and one more thing. They have to work in fast food. That's about as working class as it gets, right? The other men laughed again, but Marcus didn't find it funny. Still, he found himself nodding. Fine, $10 million. But when I win, you have to donate it all to charity. James stood up and held out his hand. Deal. You have 3 months to find someone and get married. The 1-year clock starts ticking from your wedding day. Marcus stood and shook James's hand, feeling like he had just made a deal with the devil. The other men in the room quickly pulled out their phones, probably placing their own side bets on whether Marcus would succeed or fail. As Marcus left the club that night, the cool New York air hit his face. He loosened his tie and looked up at the bright city lights. What had he just agreed to? The idea of deceiving someone, of making marriage into a bet, made him feel horrible. But backing out now would mean letting James win, and Marcus had never backed down from a challenge in his life. His driver held the car door open, and as Marcus slid into the back seat of his Rolls-Royce, he already started thinking about how to find someone. He would have to visit different fast food restaurants around the city. The thought made him uncomfortable, not because of the food or the places themselves, but because of what he was planning to do. Where to, sir? His driver asked. Marcus rubbed his temples. Home, Richard. I need to think about some things. As the car pulled away from the curb, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this bet would change his life in ways he couldn't imagine. He just didn't know if that change would be for better or worse. 2 weeks had passed since the bet, and Marcus Sterling had visited 15 different McDonald's restaurants across New York City. Each visit made him feel worse about what he was doing. He sat in his car outside another McDonald's, this one in Brooklyn, watching the late-night crowd through the windows. Sir, are you sure you want to eat here again? Richard, his driver, asked with concern. I could find you a better restaurant. No, this is fine, Marcus said, stepping out of the car. He had changed from his usual expensive suit into simple jeans and a black sweater, trying to blend in. The restaurant was quiet at 10 p.m. Only a few customers sat at the tables, most of them looking tired after long workdays. Marcus walked to the counter, rehearsing what he would say. "Welcome to McDonald's. How can I help you today?" Marcus looked up and forgot his rehearsed lines. The young woman behind the counter had the warmest smile he had ever seen. Her name tag read Amara, and despite wearing a standard McDonald's uniform, she carried herself with natural grace and confidence. "Sir, are you okay?" Amara asked, her brown eyes showing genuine concern. Marcus cleared his throat. "Yes, sorry. I'll have a Big Mac meal, please." "Sure thing. Would you like to try our new apple pie? It just came out of the oven," Amara said, her smile never fading. "Why not?" Marcus found himself smiling back. As Amara prepared his order, she handled a difficult customer with patience and wisdom. The man was complaining about his fries being cold, but instead of arguing, Amara listened and solved the problem with such skill that the angry customer left happy. Marcus sat at a table near the counter, pretending to work on his laptop while watching Amara. She helped an elderly woman find her dropped glasses, gave directions to lost tourists, and even taught a young coworker how to operate the cash register, all while keeping that genuine smile on her face. An hour passed and the restaurant got quieter. Amara started cleaning the tables near Marcus. "You must really like our food," she said, wiping the table next to his. "I've noticed you coming in a lot lately." Marcus felt his face get warm. He hadn't expected anyone to recognize him. "The food is good." Amara laughed. "No need to lie. I know it's just fast food. But sometimes it's not about the food, right? Sometimes people come here because they're looking for something else." Her words hit too close to home, and Marcus felt guilty. "What makes you say that?" "Well," Amara said, sitting down at the table across from him, "I've worked here for 8 months. You learn to read people. Like that man earlier with the cold fries. He wasn't really angry about the fries. He had a bad day at work and needed someone to listen." Marcus was impressed. "You're very observant. You have to be in this job. So, what brings a man in designer jeans and a $500 sweater to McDonald's night after night?" Marcus almost choked on his coffee. "You can tell how much my clothes cost." "I study fashion in my free time," Amara said with a shrug. "Plus, those jeans might look simple, but they're definitely Brunello Cucinelli." Now Marcus was really impressed. Most people in his social circle wouldn't know that brand. "You know your fashion brands." "I know lots of things," Amara said with a mysterious smile. "My break's over. Have a good night, Mr. Mystery Man." As she walked away, Marcus felt something he hadn't expected: genuine interest. Amara was different. She was smart, observant, and carried herself with dignity despite working a job most people look down on. For the first time since making the bet, Marcus felt conflicted for a different reason. He had found someone who could fulfill the bet's requirements, but she seemed too genuine, too real to deceive. "Last call for orders," Amara announced cheerfully to the nearly empty restaurant. "We're closing in 15 minutes. Marcus packed his laptop, left a generous tip in the charity box by the counter, and walked to the door. He stopped and looked back at Amara, who was helping her coworker clean the ice cream machine. "Same time tomorrow?" she called out with a knowing smile. Marcus couldn't help but smile back. "Same time tomorrow." As he walked back to his car, Marcus realized he was looking forward to tomorrow's visit, and that thought scared him more than any business deal ever had. Over the next month, Marcus's visits to McDonald's became the highlight of his day. He learned that Amara worked the night shift 5 days a week, and he made sure to visit during her shifts. The bet was still there in the back of his mind, but something else was growing stronger: real feelings. One night, as Amara took her break, she brought 2 cups of coffee to Marcus's usual table. "So, Mr. Sterling, when were you going to tell me you're a billionaire?" Marcus nearly dropped his phone. "You know who I am." "Google exists," Amara said, sliding 1 coffee toward him. "Plus, your picture was in the Business Times last week. Tech genius Marcus Sterling revolutionizes AI industry. Nice article." Marcus felt his face getting hot. "I should have told you." "Yes, you should have," Amara agreed, but she was smiling. "But I understand why you didn't. It must be nice to have people treat you normally for a change." Her understanding made Marcus feel even more guilty about the bet. "You're not angry? About you being rich?" "No. About you pretending to love our coffee for a month?" "Maybe a little," she teased. Nobody likes our coffee that much, not even our staff. They both laughed, and Marcus felt something warm in his chest. Can I take you to dinner? A real dinner, not McDonald's. I have another job after this shift, Amara said. I work at the library from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., then take classes from 3:30 to 5:30, and work here from 6 p.m. to midnight. Marcus was shocked. You work 2 jobs and take classes? When do you sleep? Sleep is for people who don't have dreams, Amara said with a tired smile. I'm studying business administration. College isn't cheap, and my younger sister needs help with her medical school fees. In that moment, Marcus saw Amara in a new light. While he had been playing a game with his bet, she was working incredibly hard to build a better life for herself and her family. What about Saturday? You must have some free time then? Amara thought for a moment. I only work at the library on Saturdays. I'm free after 3 p.m. Perfect. I'll pick you up at 4. On one condition, Amara said, her eyes serious. No fancy restaurants where I'll have to pretend to know which fork to use. Something real. Marcus smiled. I know just the place. That Saturday, Marcus took Amara to a small Italian restaurant in his old neighborhood. The owner, Mr. Romano, had known Marcus since before he made his fortune and still treated him like the kid who used to deliver newspapers. Your world is very different from mine, Amara said as they walked through the park after dinner. Designer clothes, expensive cars, fancy clubs. Don't you worry about what your friends will think about dating someone like me. Marcus stopped walking. Someone like you? You mean someone intelligent, hardworking, and kind. Someone who works 2 jobs to help her sister through medical school. Someone who can quote Shakespeare while making Big Macs? Amara laughed. You noticed the Shakespeare quotes? This above all, to thine own self be true, Marcus quoted back. You say it to yourself every night before starting your shift, I noticed. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sunset over the city. Marcus knew he should tell her about the bet. The words were right there on his tongue. But when Amara looked at him with those warm brown eyes, he couldn't bring himself to ruin this moment. Over the next few weeks, they spent every free moment together. Marcus learned about Amara's dreams of opening a community center to help underprivileged kids. Amara learned about Marcus's lonely childhood and his passion for creating technology that could help people. The bet that had brought them together was becoming Marcus's biggest regret. Every time Amara shared something personal, every time she trusted him with her dreams and fears, the guilt grew stronger. 1 month into their relationship, as they sat on a bench in Central Park, Amara rested her head on Marcus's shoulder. I never thought I'd fall for a billionaire, she said softly. Marcus's heart raced. And I never thought I'd fall in love with a McDonald's waitress, he said, meaning every word. What he didn't know was that both of them were keeping secrets that would soon change everything. The news of Marcus Sterling's engagement to a McDonald's waitress exploded across New York City like a bomb. Every newspaper wanted the story. Reporters camped outside the McDonald's where Amara worked, hoping to catch a glimpse of the woman who had captured the billionaire's heart. Billionaire fast food worker. The headlines screamed. Some news stories were kind, calling it a modern fairy tale. Others were cruel, suggesting Amara was only after Marcus's money. Don't read those stories, Marcus said, taking Amara's phone away as they sat in his penthouse apartment. He had asked her to move in with him after the proposal, but she insisted on keeping her jobs and her small apartment. I'm not worried about what they say about me, Amara said, looking out at the city lights. I'm worried about what this is doing to your business. Your company's stock dropped 5 points yesterday. Marcus pulled her close. The stock will recover. All that matters is us. But deep inside, Marcus was battling his own demons. The 3-month deadline for the bet was approaching, and James Henderson kept sending him knowing smiles at business meetings. The guilt was eating him alive. The wedding planning became a circus. Every wedding planner in New York wanted the job. Every designer wanted to make Amara's dress. Marcus's wealthy friends sent expensive gifts, though many included notes expressing their concern about his choice of bride. Let's just have a small wedding, Amara suggested one evening. Something simple and real, like our Italian restaurant. Marcus agreed immediately. They planned the ceremony at a small church in Brooklyn, with a reception at Mr. Romano's restaurant. But when the day arrived, the street was packed with photographers and curious onlookers. Amara was getting ready in the church's small back room when Marcus's mother came to see her. Unlike many in Marcus's social circle, Mrs. Sterling had welcomed Amara with open arms. "You look beautiful, dear," Mrs. Sterling said, helping Amara with her veil. The dress was simple but elegant, bought from a local boutique rather than a famous designer. "I'm scared," Amara admitted. "Not about marrying Marcus, but about entering his world. Everything there is so different." Mrs. Sterling smiled knowingly. "I felt the same way when Marcus's father first became successful. But remember this, money doesn't change who you are unless you let it." The ceremony was small but perfect. Amara's sister, Lisa, stood as maid of honor, taking a rare day off from medical school. Marcus's best friend from college, David, was his best man and one of the few people who hadn't questioned his choice of bride. When Marcus saw Amara walking down the aisle, his heart stopped. She was beautiful, but it was more than that. She carried herself with a quiet dignity that all the wealth in the world couldn't buy. In that moment, the bet seemed like a distant nightmare. "I, Marcus, take you, Amara," he said, his voice shaking slightly. Each word of his vows felt like both a promise and a betrayal. "I, Amara, take you, Marcus," she responded, her eyes shining with tears of joy. Or were they tears of something else? At the reception, Mr. Romano had outdone himself. The small restaurant was transformed into an intimate paradise, with twinkling lights and the smell of authentic Italian cooking filling the air. No caviar, no champagne towers, just real food and real love. James Henderson showed up uninvited, raising his glass with a smirk. "Congratulations, Sterling. Looks like the first part of our agreement is complete." Marcus quickly walked away, but not before Amara's sister Lisa overheard the comment. She gave Marcus a strange look but said nothing. As they danced their first dance, Amara whispered in Marcus's ear, "Are you happy?" "More than I've ever been," Marcus replied honestly. The bet that had started this journey was now the only shadow on his happiness. Later that night, as they drove to the airport for their honeymoon, Amara looked at the city lights. "Sometimes life gives us exactly what we need, even if it comes in an unexpected package," she said mysteriously. Marcus squeezed her hand, not knowing that their biggest challenges and surprises were still to come. 3 months into their marriage, Marcus and Amara had settled into a comfortable routine. Despite his protests, Amara kept her job at McDonald's, though she had reduced her hours. "It keeps me grounded," she would say whenever Marcus brought up the subject. One evening, Marcus sat in his office at Sterling Technologies, staring at his computer screen. The guilt about the bet was getting worse. James Henderson had started sending weekly emails asking for progress reports on his marriage. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Mr. Sterling, there's someone here from Valley Investment Group to see you," the secretary announced. Marcus straightened his tie. Valley Investment Group was one of the largest venture capital firms in the country. "Send them in." The door opened, and Marcus's world turned upside down. There stood Amara, not in her McDonald's uniform, but in a perfectly tailored business suit, carrying a leather briefcase with the Valley Investment Group logo. "Hello, Marcus," she said calmly, as if this was completely normal. "We need to talk." Marcus felt like he couldn't breathe. "Amara? What? What is this?" "My real name is Amara Johnson, Senior Investment Analyst at Valley Investment Group," she said, sitting down across from him. "I've been leading a research project on economic inequality and workforce development." Marcus just stared at her, his mouth open. "For the past year, I've been working undercover in various minimum wage jobs, studying the real challenges faced by working-class Americans," Amara continued. "McDonald's was my last assignment before writing my final report." The room seemed to spin. So, everything was a lie. Amara's professional facade cracked slightly. "Not everything. My feelings for you are real. And my sister really is in medical school, though she doesn't need financial help. She's on a full scholarship." Marcus stood up and walked to the window, trying to process this information. The late-night shifts, the second job at the library. The library job was real. It was part of my research. And those night shifts at McDonald's, they gave me the best data about workers struggling to make ends meet. Amara opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick report. "This is my project. It's going to change how companies think about minimum wage workers. Marcus turned back to her, anger building in his chest. You lied to me for months. You made me feel guilty about my wealth while pretending to be someone you're not. Amara stood up, her own anger showing. Guilty about your wealth? That's rich coming from someone who married me because of a bet. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. You know about the bet. Of course I know about the bet, Amara said, her voice trembling slightly. James Henderson is on Valley Investment Group's board of directors. He told everyone at a board meeting, laughing about how he had the great Marcus Sterling wrapped around his finger. Marcus fell back into his chair. Why didn't you say something? I wanted to see what kind of man you really are, Amara said softly. Would you tell me the truth? Would you call off the bet? Or would you just play with someone's life for $10 million? The money was never important, Marcus protested. I fell in love with you. With me? Or with the poor waitress you thought you were saving? Amara's words hit hard. The funny thing is, I fell in love with you too. Despite knowing about the bet, despite knowing I should stay professional, I couldn't help it. They sat in heavy silence for a moment. Outside Marcus's office window, the New York skyline sparkled, unaware of the drama unfolding inside. So what happens now? Marcus finally asked. Amara picked up her briefcase. That depends on you. My report goes public next week. It will expose how major companies, including some of your business partners, exploit minimum wage workers. It will also reveal my undercover work. The press will have a field day, Marcus said, rubbing his temples. The billionaire and the undercover boss. Yes, they will, Amara agreed. But maybe that's not the worst thing. Maybe it's time for both of us to stop pretending. As she walked to the door, she turned back one last time. I'm presenting my findings at the Economic Summit tomorrow night. Come if you want to understand why I did this. The door closed behind her, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts and the realization that he wasn't the only one who had been keeping secrets. The Economic Summit was held at the Grand Plaza Hotel, where New York's wealthiest and most powerful people gathered in their finest clothes. Marcus arrived late, his heart pounding as he entered the crowded ballroom. He spotted James Henderson immediately, laughing with a group of executives. Ah, Sterling. James called out. Where's your lovely wife? Working the late shift at McDonald's. Before Marcus could respond, the room lights dimmed and the event organizer stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker, Amara Johnson from Valley Investment Group. The audience applauded politely. Then Amara walked onto the stage, and the room went silent. She looked stunning in a red evening gown, but it was her confidence that caught everyone's attention. This wasn't the McDonald's waitress they read about in the papers. This was a powerful businesswoman. Good evening, Amara began. For the past year, I've been living a double life. Marcus watched as James Henderson's smug smile disappeared. Other people in the room started whispering and pointing at Marcus. I've worked as a janitor, a warehouse worker, and yes, a McDonald's waitress, Amara continued. I've seen how the wealthy view the working class. I've experienced firsthand how it feels to be treated as invisible. She clicked a button, and pictures appeared on the large screen behind her. Images of her working different jobs, talking to struggling families, and documenting their stories. But something unexpected happened during my research, Amara said, her eyes finding Marcus in the crowd. I met someone who showed me that wealth doesn't always corrupt the heart. Someone who, despite his own deceptions, proved that genuine connections can form across social barriers. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. Even after everything, she was showing him kindness he didn't deserve. Unfortunately, Amara's voice hardened. I also discovered how some wealthy individuals treat marriage and human emotions as a game. She looked directly at James Henderson. Would you like to tell everyone about your $10 million bet, Mr. Henderson? Or should I? The room erupted in shocked whispers. James stood up, his face red with anger. This is ridiculous. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can, Amara said calmly. She played a recording of James bragging about the bet at a board meeting. His voice filled the ballroom, describing how he had manipulated Marcus into the marriage bet. Marcus couldn't take it anymore. He walked to the stage, took the microphone, and faced the crowd. Everything she's saying is true. I agreed to marry someone from the working class to win a bet. It was wrong, and I'm ashamed." He turned to Amara. "But falling in love with you was real. Every conversation we had, every moment we shared, that wasn't part of any bet. You showed me what really matters in life, and it's not money, or winning, or proving something to people like James Henderson." Amara's professional composure cracked slightly, tears forming in her eyes. James jumped up again. "This is all a setup. She trapped you, Sterling. She's nothing but a corporate spy." "No," Marcus said firmly. "She's a brilliant woman who cared enough to expose the truth about how we treat people, and I'm done playing your games, James." He pulled out his phone and made a quick call. "Transfer $10 million from my account to the Worker Education Fund. Yes, right now." The room was silent. Marcus looked at James. "I just lost your bet on purpose, and it's the best decision I've ever made." Amara stepped forward. "My research shows that 70% of minimum wage workers can't afford college education. The Worker Education Fund will help change that. This isn't about charity. It's about giving people fair chances." She turned to Marcus. "You could have told me about the bet at any time. You got plenty of chances." "I know," Marcus said softly. "I was afraid of losing you, but I ended up hurting you anyway." "Yes, you did," Amara agreed. "Just like I hurt you by not telling you who I really was." The room was still watching them, but at that moment, they felt like the only two people there. "So where do we go from here?" Marcus asked. Amara took a deep breath. "That depends. Are you ready to be completely honest with me? No more secrets, no more pretending." Marcus looked into her eyes, aware that his next words could either save or end their marriage. The days following the economic summit were chaos. News channels couldn't get enough of the story. Billionaire's marriage based on bet, an undercover boss married to tech mogul, dominated the headlines. But inside their penthouse apartment, Marcus and Amara faced a different kind of chaos, trying to save their marriage. "I'm staying at my own apartment for a while," Amara said, packing a small bag. "I need time to think." Marcus stood in the doorway, looking lost. "I understand. But before you go, I want to show you something." He picked up his laptop and opened a document. "This is what I've been working on for the past 3 days. It's a complete plan to help workers at every company I'm involved with." Amara paused her packing. "What kind of plan?" "Free college education for all employees and their children, on-site childcare centers, real health care benefits, minimum wage starting at $25 per hour." Marcus showed her the numbers. "I've already talked to my board of directors. We're implementing it next month." "That's impressive," Amara admitted, sitting down to look at the plans. "But why?" "Because you opened my eyes," Marcus said simply. "All those nights at McDonald's, watching you work so hard, listening to your coworkers' stories, it changed me. The bet might have brought me there, but you're the one who made me see the truth." Amara was quiet for a moment. "Actions speak louder than words, Marcus." "I know. That's why I've done something else too." He handed her another document. "I'm donating 30% of my personal wealth to create a foundation, and I want you to run it." Amara's eyes widened as she read the details. The foundation would focus on education, job training, and small business support for low-income communities. "This is billions of dollars," she whispered. "Yes, and who better to manage it than someone who truly understands both worlds?" Marcus sat beside her. "You don't have to decide now. Take all the time you need." Over the next few weeks, they lived separate lives but talked every day. Amara went back to Valley Investment Group, where her research was making waves in the business world. Marcus threw himself into transforming his company's worker policies. One evening, Amara called Marcus in excitement. "Turn on Channel 7. On TV, James Henderson was being led out of his office in handcuffs. The news anchor explained that an investigation had revealed years of worker exploitation and illegal business practices at his companies. "Your research helped expose this, didn't it?" Marcus asked over the phone. "Maybe," Amara said, and he could hear her smile. "Have dinner with me tonight?" They met at Mr. Romano's restaurant, where their story had really begun. The old Italian man gave them their usual quiet corner table. "I've been thinking about your foundation offer," Amara said, playing with her pasta, "but I have conditions." "Name them." "First, we start with education centers in every community where your companies operate. Real education, not just job training, but courses that help people grow. Marcus nodded. Done. Second, we create a program to help small businesses compete with big corporations. No more pushing out local shops. Already working on it. Third, Amara took a deep breath. We go to marriage counseling. If we're going to run this foundation together, we need to rebuild our trust. Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. I'd like that. One last thing, Amara said, pulling out her phone. She showed him a news article about a college student who worked at McDonald's. The student had just received a full scholarship from the Worker Education Fund, the same fund Marcus had donated to at the summit. She's like I was once, Amara said softly, dreaming of a better life while working late-night shifts, but now she has a real chance. Marcus squeezed her hand. This is just the beginning. We can help so many more people. Together? Amara asked. Together, Marcus confirmed. No more bets, no more secrets. Just us, trying to make the world a little better. As they walked home that night, hand in hand, they passed by the McDonald's where they first met. Through the window, they could see the late-night crew working, dreaming their own dreams. We should give them all scholarships, Marcus said. Amara smiled. Now you're thinking like a real change-maker. 1 year had passed since the dramatic events at the Economic Summit. On a sunny morning, Marcus and Amara stood together outside a new building in Brooklyn. A large crowd had gathered for the opening of the Sterling Johnson Community Center, the first of many such centers they planned to build across the country. Ready? Amara asked, holding the scissors to cut the ribbon. Wait, Marcus said, looking at the crowd. I want to say something first. He stepped up to the microphone and looked at the gathered people, journalists, business leaders, and most importantly, local community members. 1 year ago, I was a different person, Marcus began. I thought success was about money and winning. Then I met an amazing woman at McDonald's, and everything changed. The crowd chuckled, now familiar with their famous story. But this story isn't really about us, Marcus continued. It's about every person who has ever worked a late-night shift while dreaming of something better. It's about every parent who works 2 jobs to send their kids to college. It's about every student who makes our coffee, serves our food, or cleans our offices while carrying the weight of their dreams. Amara stepped forward and took his hand. She was no longer pretending to be a waitress, but she still wore her old McDonald's name tag on special occasions like this one, a reminder of where their journey began. This center, she said into the microphone, offers free college classes, job training, childcare, and small business support. But more than that, it offers hope. And hope can change everything. Together, they cut the ribbon. The crowd cheered as the doors opened, revealing a modern facility filled with classrooms, a daycare center, and offices for career counseling. Inside, they met Lisa, Amara's sister, who had finished medical school and now ran the center's health clinic. First patient arrives in an hour, she said excitedly. Mr. Romano had opened a small cafe in the center where he would teach cooking classes to aspiring restaurant owners. Just like my papa taught me, he said proudly. Even James Henderson's story had a surprising ending. After serving time for his crimes, he had asked to volunteer at the center as part of his rehabilitation. Today, he taught business ethics classes, using his own story as a warning about the price of greed. As they walked through the busy halls, Marcus and Amara stopped to look at the Wall of Dreams. Photos of people who had already been helped by their foundation. There was Sarah, the former McDonald's worker who had earned her degree. Mike, who had started his own successful food truck business. Maria, who now ran a daycare center. Remember when you asked me to be real on our first date? Marcus said, looking at the photos. And now look at us. Amara smiled. We're finally being our true selves. They walked to their favorite spot, the rooftop garden where students could study or just take a quiet break. The Manhattan skyline sparkled in the distance. The foundation has helped over 10,000 people this year, Amara said, reading the latest report on her phone. And that's just the beginning. Marcus looked at his watch. We should head to the airport soon. The Chicago Center opens next week. Just one more thing, Amara said mysteriously. She handed him a small box. Inside was a McDonald's name tag that read Marcus. What's this for? He asked, confused. You're working the night shift with me next week, she grinned. Once a month, we're going to work at different minimum wage jobs. Keep us connected to the real world. Marcus laughed and pinned the name tag to his expensive suit. I love you, you know that? I know, Amara said softly. And I love you, not the billionaire, not the businessman, just you. As they left the center that evening, they passed a young woman in a fast food uniform, studying a college textbook during her break. She looked up at them hopefully. Apply for our program, Amara said, handing her a brochure. Dreams matter here. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, she whispered. Walking to their car, Marcus squeezed Amara's hand. A bet brought us together, but love kept us together. And that love is changing lives, Amara added. Above them, the setting sun painted the sky in beautiful colors, a perfect ending to their story, or perhaps just the beginning of a much bigger one.